I learned so much just from watching him, and obviously the way he strikes the ball, his technique, and obviously his movement in and around the box was so good.
So Ruud has officially arrived and he's brought Mr. Hake with him. Another Dutchman in Joshua Zirkzee is on the cusp of arriving, with a fourth leaving for Spain. Get the kettle on. It's your latest episode of the Theatre of Red. As we prepare for a weekend where Gareth Southgate aims to create history with Manchester United's little magician orchestrating matters on the field, Erik ten Hag's side has returned to training with Thursday's confirmation that Ruud van Nistelrooy and René Hake will be his new assistants. It's been all change at Old Trafford. Dan Ashworth is leading his collection of highly paid footballing brains towards a new era of dominance in the Northwest. And a man who knows a thing or two about Manchester United and the thrills of daily involvement with the Premier League's greatest club has enjoyed the dream of scaling the iconic academy and eventually putting on that top and lining out at the very, very pinnacle of Premier League football. Mr. Phil Marsh, it is brilliant to have you with me today. How's everything?
Yeah, great to be on. Thanks for having me. All good. I actually visited Carrington a couple of days ago, which was good. I have actually been a couple of times in the last 12 months, which has been nice. And speaking to a lot of the old coaches and people who are there, they're very optimistic with what's going on. So, yeah, lots of positives to sort of be looking forward to, I think, moving forward with the club.
Definitely. And even now in 2024, with what has gone on, what supporters, I suppose, have endured over the last 2 decades, do you still get the same feeling when you walk back into Carrington?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, every time I go back, it's very special. Spent a lot of my younger days there, and obviously as a kid, when you sort of playing full time and you training, and it becomes your second home, if you like. So yeah, very very good day the other day when I went back, seeing some of the old faces again, and yeah, as I say, it's very special for me when I go back. It just brings back a lot of good memories and a lot of good times that I had, and sort of shared it with some fantastic people and some unbelievable players. I say I was very lucky at the time I was at the club to sort of share a changing room and sort of being around some of them massive names of the game. Your Wayne Rooney's and Cristiano Ronaldo. So yeah, absolutely amazing. And as I say, I'm always very humble to go back and sort of appreciate that it's a lot of people's dream to sort of be in that position. So yeah.
You mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney. You were privileged to work under some great names at the club, obviously with the likes of Paul McGuinness and Tony Whelan, and obviously the greatest of all time in Sir Alex Ferguson. When you're considering the different dimensions that you inherited as a player with every passing year, and I want to focus on now, how do you think that dressing room is going to react to the arrival of Van Nistelrooy and Hake alongside the departures of Mitchell van der Gaag and Benny McCarthy?
Yeah, I mean, I think for somebody like Ruud van Nistelrooy, who's had a stellar career, he comes in with a lot of money in the bank, if you like, with obviously what he's done in his career. I think that stands for a lot this day and age. But I think also he's a very good person. He's very articulate. He's a great person first and foremost, and I'm sure he'll be relishing the opportunity to come in and work with some of these players. Obviously, results and performances last season wasn't as good as we hoped. So I'm sure that the both of them are coming in and looking to sort of freshen up some ideas and sort of get us playing a brand of football that the fans can be excited about, and hopefully we can start moving up the table and eventually once we get that in place we can start challenging on all fronts again, which is club like Manchester United, that's where we need to be.
You mentioned the underwhelming season, and that's not just one, it's a catalogue of many. Obviously, it ended very well with the FA Cup, but when you have so many highs and so many lows, inside in a dressing room that is mixed, you've got the definition of veterans in Tom Heaton and Johnny Evans, and then you have the complete other spectrum with players coming through like Garnacho, Kobbie Mainoo, and you've got Rasmus Højlund coming to the club as a young guy. When you consider that mix of players that are used to a coaching system and a structure that's there, is it an immediate acceptance from the entire dressing room about a different way of thinking with different individuals, or is it going to take some individuals time to get to grips with people leaving and new faces arriving?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think every single player is different. Some players will maybe take a little bit more time than others to sort of adapt and to readjust to a different maybe a different way of working and a different voice. However, a lot of players will just automatically, be straight on board and will want to sort of buy into what the new coaches are sort of telling them. I think, as I say, that's the beauty of having a dressing room. You know, some of the older players and some of the younger players, everybody's sort of got their own way of learning and sort of, integrating what's going to be sort of said. So it will be interesting. I think for me personally, bringing someone like Ruud, who's obviously a club legend, into the club gives a massive boost to everybody, the fans and sort of some of the former players who maybe have seen highlights of what he did at the club. So yeah, for me, I'm very positive, and I think that it will have a really good effect, and I'm hoping that, as I say, that will sort of rub off in sort of pre-season, and we can start the season strong. I'm hoping, obviously, there's going to be some signings coming through the door as well, which very optimistic with some of the names that have been floating around, and hopefully we can add a couple more, because I think last season it showed, obviously, with the squad depth that we definitely needed to strengthen in certain areas. And yeah, hopefully that'll be addressed, and we can have a really successful season.
And when you factor in the benefits of top tier coaching, you just have to look at the immediate impact that Benny McCarthy had with Marcus Rashford a couple of years ago. And it is one thing that I want to speak to you about, because since the name of Ruud van Nistelrooy started being mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I've received mixed response from different individuals regarding the techniques and the manners and how we can accept it. Considering your experiences as a striker who evolved from a normal kid to a Wigan Academy player and then on to United, how do you feel about the prospect of players in their early 20s adapting to Ruud van Nistelrooy, the legend that he is, the experience he has in everything from the dark arts to movement and just general finishing? When you consider names like Rasmus Højlund, Alejandro Garnacho, and Ahmad, alongside a finisher of his caliber, at their age, surely there is a massive advantage in having an ex finisher of that caliber alongside you on a daily basis in a training ground.
100%. I think Ruud van Nistelrooy, to be honest, in my full career of playing football, um, he is the best finisher that I've ever seen, and I was lucky enough to work with him, doing finishing sessions and after training and little bits of extra stuff. And I learned so much just from watching him, and obviously the way he strikes a ball, his technique, and obviously his movement in and around the box was so good. So as a young player, and some of these players now currently in the first team, you mentioned Rasmus Højlund. I think he's a prime example. I think obviously come to the club and there was a lot of pressure on him straight away, because we didn't really have that second striker who would maybe take a little bit of the pressure off him, and who for me I think needs someone who he can sort of learn from, and sort of give him that sort of next level to make him sort of a better player. I think he's sort of got all the attributes, but he's just maybe a little bit of a rough diamond at this moment in time. I think Ruud will be someone who will be looking at him and thinking, I'm 100% convinced that I can improve this player. Not only just with his finishing, I think with all aspects of his game, his hold up play, his linking up with other players, his movement, and arriving into the box and sort of becoming a little bit more of a poacher. I think because at this moment in time, we're crying out for somebody who's going to be scoring 15, 20 goals a season regular. I think at the moment we've sort of had a couple of players who've popped up in previous seasons. Obviously, Rashford had his great season the year before, but I think all the top teams have that. One or two players that are always consistently chipping in with the amount of goals that you need to, be challenging for titles and for trophies. So I'm convinced that the Ruud van Nistelrooy appointment will work, and that he'll be a great addition to the coaching staff. And some of these younger players, you like Garnacho as well, will sort of buy into what he tells. And I think Ruud was somebody who loved the ball being delivered into the box, and was sort of always on the shoulder of the defender, waiting for the ball to be delivered. the game has obviously changed since then, but I do believe that we will start seeing more balls getting put into the box now that Ruud van Nistelrooy has joined the club, and obviously that's Garnacho and the other younger wingers and players will hopefully add that to the game, because obviously we don't want to take away everything that they've been doing, because they've done amazing. But I think sometimes we don't maybe put balls into the box as much as we should do, because that is a great weapon to have in your sort of armoury as an attacking unit. And defenders don't always expect it. And if you've got centre forwards who are ready to be on the move and creeping in at the back post or getting across the defender, you're asking questions, and I think that'll be something hopefully I want to see in this next coming season.
Couldn't agree more. And you just have to look at the amount of opportunities that Hoyland had versus, we'll say, the top 10 goal scorers in the Premier League last year. And he was regularly starved of that. I previously mentioned Ashworth and the work that's being completed behind closed doors. Another attacker who now looks like he's going to benefit from the great Dutchman is Joshua Zirkzee, with David Ornstein confirming his medical later today, ahead of a €42.5 million transfer from Bologna. What does that particular type of acquisition represent to you? Is that a positive signing and someone you're looking forward to seeing at Old Trafford?
Yeah, definitely. I've not seen, bundles of him. I think what I have seen, I'm very impressed. I think he's a very positive player. So that's a good sign, I think. As you say, we're adding to the final third with a little bit more quality. I do think that there's obviously other positions that definitely need strengthening as well. But to get someone like that, and obviously someone of his calibre over the line early doors, is always great, because now we can sort of hopefully concentrate on the other areas of the pitch. Because I think other than maybe another centre forward who might be able to take that pressure off Hoyland, the front line to me looks really good, and we've got a array of players there who I'd be excited about seeing. I think Garnacho's obviously established himself really well now, and sort of took that position. And we've got a couple of other players who are still, obviously Rashford had a bad season last year for his standards. Hopefully he will come back with the bit between his teeth to want to prove a point again. And the likes of Anthony, who's been a little bit underwhelming and been hit and miss. Again, he's got a point to prove with obviously his price tag that he came with. So yeah, I think the competition is going to be great, because it's healthy competition, and you want to see that in a squad. And this signing will hopefully ignite some of these players, and you want to see the attitude of I want to be wearing the shirt. So you've got to earn that right and sort of prove it on the training pitch.
You need competition, like you're saying. I know the side is nowhere near it, but even when you look at the great side of '99, when you had Cole, York, Solskjaer, Sheringham, you had the four options there. Nobody else had that sort of strength and depth. And you saw the benefit of that, obviously, in the culmination of what happened against Bayern Munich in the dying minutes with both men coming off the bench. But in defence, we see Matthias de Ligt seemingly close to an arrival. And we've witnessed the latest English prospect in Jarrad Branthwaite. And he's been the subject of two failed bids, one for 35 million plus add-ons and a second for 45 million plus add-ons. With a third bid expected, I think these are hefty figures we are looking at for a player who, despite potential, is rather limited with elite playing experience, we'll say at the highest level. When you factor in the pursuit of the young Frenchman Lenny Yoro and the club's desire to bring anywhere up to 3 central defenders to the club to bolster the squad, how have you felt about the fee for an unknown variable in Branthwaite? And is that someone that you would be going all out to solidify a central defensive partnership with Lisandro Martinez?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think for me, Branthwaite has had a great season. I think clubs have got it in the head that Manchester United always sort of pay over the odds for players. So I'm glad in a way that we've sort of started off at a lower figure and sort of gradually maybe building up to a figure that we've got a ceiling of. I wouldn't be offering any more than 50 million for a player like Branthwaite when obviously you look at other players in the market like Yoru, you just said, who for me would be a great acquisition. I do like him, but again, I wouldn't want to fall into the trap of Everton expecting us to just keep upping and make us feel like we're desperate, because I think, as you say, there is other options out there. And for me, I would look at the De Ligt and the Yoro as the two who would prioritise over Branthwaite, and that's just my own personal opinion. I think Martinez to partner any of them two would be fantastic in the first instance. And as I say, you always want to have maybe 4 players in a position that you've got that depth and quality. So again, if he is available and we can maybe get him for the 45, we may as well. Sorry, my cat's just jumped in. But yeah. As I say, that would be my take on it, and I'm hoping that the 2 players we mentioned, we can get that over the line.
Absolutely. And the cat is more than welcome. A trio is always
Yeah,
better anyway.
he's called Skulls anyway, so he's more than welcome on the United podcast.
He is more than welcome. More than welcome. Sticking with transfers, but focusing on the outgoings. It appears edging ever closer to an exit for the troubled forward in Mason Greenwood. We see that Donny van de Beek has completed his permanent transfer to La Liga to join Girona on Thursday. And with Greenwood, Marseille and United have now come to an agreement with a figure in the region of 25 to 30 million and a substantial sell-on clause. We're believed to be anywhere of 50% with an option for United to purchase more. Given the necessity for sales to comply with the league's profit and sustainability rules and the obvious off-the-field drama that surrounds Greenwood, the move really represents the best possible outcome for all involved.
Yeah, I think it was inevitable. I think, to be fair, Greenwood was never really going to have a future at the club after everything that's happened. I just think it got to a point where it was a little bit too messy. And obviously, as you say, with the players that we're bringing in and the rules now that we know, I think he was an obvious candidate to sort of move on and try and get as much money as we can for him. I think there will be a lot more players as well that obviously looking to move on or to get sold in the coming weeks and months. Because as you say, we've got quite a lot of players that I think the manager and the staff and are going to be at it, sort of looking at and trying to improve the squad. I think massively last year it was shown with the amount of injuries that we had, which was unprecedented, but the lack of depth in the squad was there for everybody to see, and the performances was proven that we sort of lacked that experience and leadership and real quality in periods of the season. So I think that'll definitely need to be addressed, and sort of the right characters and the right players will hopefully come into the club. I think that's the one thing I am a little bit more confident about now with the appointments that we've made in the background, that some of the players now that we're looking at, they seem to me like these are the right characters and the right type of player to play for Manchester United, and not just going all out for the biggest names and sort of reputations, and then obviously coming in and not sort of doing the business, and end up spitting the dummy out, and we're sat on a player with 3 or 4 years left on his contract on a massive wage. I hope we've learned our lesson on that side of things now, and we can sort of be a bit more savvy in the market.
It just goes to show, really, when you consider Greenwood, that individuals, in terms of footballers, regardless of the promise that they have, it's all an entire package, that you have to have the mental aspect as well as the ability on the field. And with that, from one academy graduate, I have to go to another, in the utterly remarkable rise of Kobbie Mainoo. Now, we're looking at a guy that I'm speaking about every single week, and I'm probably up there with one of his greatest admirers. Obviously, you're looking at an underage starlet who has transformed from that into one of the first names on a team sheet for club and country. Just as an academy graduate yourself and a lover of the football club and the surroundings, just how proud are you of the Stockport lad and what he's after achieving over the last 9-10 months?
Incredible. I think, from coming where he was sort of a year ago to where he is now, it's absolutely sensational. I think he's maturity levels that he's shown, the sort of confidence that he's shown on the pitch. Obviously, we've seen him in the Euros, last night, and obviously this tournament. I think to be able to come into a team and sort of at Manchester United, he was struggling, and still sort of take the bull by the horns and not be fazed by any of those things, I think shows just an incredible amount of confidence, and sort of really, really been a breath of fresh air for everyone. I think playing the way he has at such a young age, it's definitely give everyone a lift in what was a really poor season overall, other than the FA Cup. So yeah, can't really speak more highly of him. I think everything he's done so far has been exemplary, and we just hope that he keeps the progress that he's been making. And he's got the world at his feet. I think he could be the future of Manchester United if he sort of keeps on the same trajectory that he's going at the moment. And what I do like about him is he's very level-headed. He speaks well. He doesn't get carried away, and I think he's got the right sort of people around him. So everything sort of seems to be going really well, and he's ticking all the boxes at the moment. So long may that continue.
You've hit the nail on the head there that he doesn't seem to get carried away, and he does seem level headed, because it allows the likes of me to get carried away when I'm discussing the talent that he has and of young players in general. When he can seamlessly transition into a midfield with Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham, while looking like the experienced leader of the three in those real fundamental moments over in Germany, I do think it is okay to start building your team around him for the next decade. Just how much of an impact do you expect him to have against Spain on Sunday?
I think, as you said, then going into that midfield with them two other massive players who's obviously been there and done it at the top level. He just doesn't seem phased, and I think the way he takes the ball, and he can play in any position. He can play as a 6, he can play as an 8. He's comfortable at the back, covering in front of the back four. And when he gets forward, he can pick a pass, and he looks so comfortable on the ball at all times. So for me, I think he's going to be a massive player against Spain, because they obviously play a lot of short, intricate passes into the midfield, and he's going to be obviously needed a lot in that aspect. I think defensively, he's made a lot of interceptions where you think, clever, just reading the game, wise beyond his years. But not only that, when he gets forward, he's not afraid of obviously, getting a shot off, or picking a pass, and sort of being a threat in the attacking third. So a massive player for both club and country in such a short space of time. And he's definitely been one of England's best players in this tournament for me. I think obviously after not starting in the first game, he's cemented his spot now, and I think he's probably one of the first names on the team sheet. So again, that just speaks volumes of what he's done on the pitch, and the kind of lad he must be in and around the dressing room as well, because I think that's a massive part of it. Coming in at such a young age, you've got sort of a bit of a point to prove, and people are looking at you as if to say, do you deserve to be here? And I think he's answered that question, 10 times over.
I'm very, very interested as a neutral to see the rematch between Rodri and Mainu on Sunday. It's going to be absolutely intriguing. For those listening right now, many will not have had the opportunity to hear from a genuine Manchester United graduate who has been there and has worn many, many shirts and has many shirts to prove it. As somebody who encountered the ultimate highs and lows, from a car accident as a young boy to the grit and determination of a player to fight back and work hard and to win a senior spot alongside Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Alan Smith, how do you, or can you, quantify your journey for the average Joe sitting down with a cup of coffee listening to you today?
Yeah, obviously, very lucky, and I sort of got an opportunity to go to the club at a young age. I think the coaching that I received from a young age was great for me, because previous to that, I was just sort of playing locally, and at Wigan, it was just a centre of excellence. So he was only training maybe once or twice a week, and then going to Man United, and being lucky enough to sort of go into a team full of great players, and getting coached by, as we touched on before, Paul McGuinnesses and Tony Whelans of this world. That just sort of took me to the next level, took my sort of game to the next level, and sort of made me feel more passionate about the sport. And as I say, every single year from that point on, I sort of felt like I was progressing really well. I filled out quite early, so obviously that was a big plus for me. I was playing a couple of years up, I was playing up an age group, and then eventually I got to 2 years up, because I was sort of a lot bigger and stronger than a lot of the other lads at my age at that time. So yeah, it was amazing to sort of be involved in the academy. And then when I went full time, again, that's it. And you leave school, and it's your job, and you're sort of in there every day. And I always say this about, obviously, my time at the club was made by being involved as a sort of 17-year-old in the youth team, but being able to share the same building as some of the first team players, and interacting and just being able to mix with them. It give you that sense of I'm not that far away, and I can ask for advice, and I can go for breakfast, and I can have a chat with somebody who's maybe similar position to me, but doing it every single week in the first team. I think all those experiences for me was really invaluable and helped my development at the time. So yeah, as I say, just incredible, and the club was amazing with me. You get to travel to loads of different countries and play against different teams. And for such a young age, that's obviously brilliant experiences, and you learn in different cultures. Um, and yeah, I say it was incredible, and obviously the crash happened at a really bad time for me. I was sort of captain of the youth team at that point, and I'd just played my first game in the reserve team, and then that happened, and sort of set me back quite a while. I was out for just over a year, and obviously missed out on a lot of progress, and it was a long slog, getting back to a level and fitness, working with the physios, endless extra sessions, and strengthening up in the gym and swimming and all these things that people probably don't see and appreciate. But yeah, I think obviously my determination was that my goal when I first signed that contract at Manchester United was to try and get into the first team. And as I say, working so hard, and trying to fulfil that dream and ambition that I had, obviously was all worthwhile when I did eventually get the call up, and sort of was lucky enough to play in the game that I played in, which was Crew Alexandra in the Carabao Cup, or it was the Carling Cup back then. And yeah, I was lucky enough to play up front against Crew at their ground with Alan Smith and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and we won that game 2-1. And yeah, that's something that I was very proud of that moment, because of obviously the adversity that had come through at such a young age, and to fight back and to be there on merit, not as a bit of a sympathy. I had to work so hard for that moment, and yeah, very proud. I just wished that maybe I'd have got a little bit more of an opportunity after that, I think, but I don't have any regrets about that. I just think it was, at the time, the club was doing so well. The amount of talent that we had in the group and the first team, with some of the players I've already mentioned, as a young player, it was really difficult to sort of, get many opportunities and many chances, because it was just, every single player in every position was world class. And again, that was something that I was really proud of. And again, you can look at it two ways. I didn't maybe play that many games, and didn't maybe get more opportunities, but on the flip side of that, I got the chance to play with some of the world's best players, and learn from them, and watch how they go about the business. And then that helped me, when I eventually moved away from the club, to sort of have the standards, and the sort of the mindset that you need to become a top professional.
One thing that you've said amongst all of that, which is fantastic, it kind of dispels this ideology that a lot of modern supporters have, especially the youth. They feel to have a successful football team, it has to be a dressing room full of young, talented guys that have 10, 15 years ahead of them. You've spoken about the ability to be able to go and sit down and have breakfast with guys and have a chat with them and ask for advice. It really, really highlights the importance of the likes of your Johnny Evans for a dressing room, to be able to put the arm around a young guy and to be able to give that advice and to be able to help with some tips and all tips of the trade that are there. Just how important is it for the likes of Johnny Evans now and guys of that particular ilk that have been there and done it for the next generation coming through?
Yeah, it's massive. I think, as I say, that was the sort of biggest thing for me when I first went in full time. Obviously, you're excited about training, and being there every single day, and getting used to sort of a new way of working. But being able to go in the morning and have breakfast after maybe watching the first team on a Saturday, and sort of pick their brains about the game, or a certain part of your game that you may be struggling with, or whatever, and to ask someone who's playing in the first team, or a world class player who's at your disposal, to sort of have a conversation with was unbelievable. Again, I can't reiterate that point enough because um, you know every day on the training field you're getting told different things from the coaches, and when you can ask a polished professional footballer who you're interacting with every single day for advice, then you need to make sure that you're making the most of them opportunities. So I used to love doing extra sessions. If there was ever a chance for me to do any extra shooting or whatever with some of the first team players, I was always first to sort of be there because I just wanted to watch and just see how them players went about the business, and you can't not but learn and sort of enjoy them moments. So again, as you say, Johnny Evans and Tom Eatons of this world now at the club, that I'm sure they're getting asked a lot of questions, and naturally they will be giving advice and speaking to some of these younger players, because that was the era we was brought up in, and I think that was just the norm. It is a little bit disappointing because when I went to Carrington, and I've been a few times, they're actually separated now. So the first team are in a building, and the rest of the teams are in another building. So that kind of thing now probably doesn't happen as often, or doesn't happen as regular as it did when I was there, which I think is probably a little bit of a disappointment for me. I think obviously the players, the younger players, would benefit so much from being in and around the first team players, because it's just every single day. You're learning and you're watching and you're just seeing how the sort of ultimate professionals go about the daily business. And yeah, it's one of them things. It may come back around again at some point where they are back allowed, and it's obviously everyone's in the same building. But as I say, them moments don't come along very often, and you've got to make the most of them.
One thing I have to ask, because I mentioned Sir Alex and the undeniable impact that he's had in the football club is there for all to see. During the 4 to 5 years that you spent close to him at the club, just how dangerous was that notorious hairdryer?
To be honest, I never really had that many bad run-ins with the boss. I do know that the hairdryer was definitely a thing, and I have witnessed a few, but not me personally. So I do know that was definitely something he had in his locker. Um, However, I think maybe the perception of him was maybe a little bit false with the way he was. I think on a day to day basis he was always very pleasant and would treat everybody the same. And I think that's a massive part of why the club was so successful. I think it was a family. Everybody was treated exactly the same, regardless of who you was, whether you was the cleaner or whether you was the club captain. Everybody, treated everybody with respect, and everyone was on an equal playing field. And I think because of how much respect everybody had for him, over time, because of his success and the way he went about his business, I think in the end, and when it got to a certain point, the sort of players knew what was expected, knew what the standards were, and they pretty much, knew what was expected. So they ended up running the changing room. So Alex never really had to say a lot. He used to just, come in, say a little bit, and let the players crack on because they knew exactly what the expectations were. So yeah, an absolutely fantastic manager. Was amazing with me, especially obviously after the car crash. He actually came to my mum and dad's house in St Helens and visited me, and told me, we'll make sure you get all the best treatment, and don't worry. And he gave me an extra year on my contract, which was, he didn't really need to do that, but he did that as well. So yeah, absolutely unbelievable person, and yeah, my experience with him was nothing but great memories. So can't really speak much more highly of him. I think he's what he's done in football is undeniable. There probably won't be another manager, certainly in my lifetime, that achieves what he's achieved. And yeah, he's everybody seems to want to speak to him for advice, and you can't blame him because of how good the club was, and on and off the field, the way he conducted himself was marvelous.
Well, you couldn't do much more than that. Now, one final question for you today. Taking everything that we have discussed into consideration, What is an acceptable season for Manchester United in 24-25 if they should succeed in bringing in the players that they want to get?
I think from last season, obviously disappointing in terms of a league finish. The FA Cup was obviously a bonus at the end, which we probably wasn't expecting. Um, so for me, I think this next season we need to make sure that we're definitely finishing comfortably in the top four, and we're not sort of scratching around to try and scrape into that. I think we need to be very very consistent over the season and make sure that we're sort of in that top four for the majority of the season and finish comfortably in there. And probably another trophy. I think obviously the FA Cup was a great run for us last year, and we did really well in that competition overall. Um, but yeah, and another trophy next season, as well as a top four, will probably be another step in the right direction. I'm hoping that the style of playing may alter a little bit, and we sort of start to see now a Ten Hag team with a proper style of play that we can sort of relate to and identify from week to week, and not sort of from one week to the next be scratching our heads thinking what kind of football was we trying to play there. And I think that obviously will come down to a lot more of the players being back fit that we missed last year. So that consistency of a back four and having a sort of set team that can gel and sort of build up them relationships, which we definitely didn't have last year. So that would be a realistic and sort of positive aim from my point of view for next season. I think anything more than that would be a bonus in such a short space of time. But again, I'm very optimistic, and I think with the stuff that we've got going on in the background, and hopefully now with the appointments to the coaching staff that we've made, and some of the signings that we're looking to make, I do have a good feeling about this next season, and hopefully we can start to bridge that gap with the likes of Man City and Liverpool, and over time that will hopefully get less and less, and I just want to see us back. Competing for trophies and playing a style of football that the fans want, and that's what Manchester United's all about. I grew up watching that, and I hope that in the next 3-4 years will it'll just be the norm, and that we expect that Man United are turning up, and it's going to be a thrilling performance regardless of results.
I couldn't agree more. An absolute pleasure to chat with you today, Phil. If anybody wants to get in touch, how can they do so?
Yeah, to be honest, I use Twitter mainly. So my Twitter handle is Marshy20. So that's where you'll probably find me most.
Anyone listening, you can catch me as always at Shaun Connolly85 on Twitter. Be sure and follow theatre_of_red across all of our social channels. We're active on all of them. Finally, it would help us massively if you wouldn't mind dropping a subscribe and even a possible review wherever you're listening today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Enjoy the football, and we'll catch you all next week.